All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of XS Succeed. This is Gearface. I am joined by a new expert slash victim slash guinea pig has entered the fray. Rin from the Pennsylvania scene that also spawned such series favorites as Faust and Coroner and Shizzy Mac and Darksight Blind, and they're here to tell me a little bit about Orie from back in Undernight, a character in Exceed. Bottom text. That is everything that I know about Orie as of this moment. Hopefully, in about an hour or so, I'll have learned a whole lot more from Rin. Rin, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's not a problem. And going into playing Orie the first time, that was about all I knew about Orie as well. Um, you know, when new seasons come out, my thing is usually I pick a character that I like the aesthetic for,
Mhm.
and then play them for a little bit, and then decide if it kind of fits my jam. And Orie was my I like the aesthetic of this character. Uh, Let me play them, and now I'm here.
And then a sequence of events occurred over a series of several years, and now suddenly a strange man has messaged you on Discord to talk about an Exceed character, as life
Uh,
sometimes goes. Um,
yeah,
yeah, it'll be fun. We're gonna learn. I'm gonna learn a lot. A couple disclaimers, as always, before we get started. Number one is, I think, viewer, you should play Exceed for fun. We're going to be talking on this show about playing to win, and those two things don't always line up. Um, you might hear Rin and I talking about always do this as Orie, never do this as Orie. First of all, those are the rules to Rin's playstyle with Orie. They don't have to be your own. We'll get to that in a second. But more importantly, if what we're talking about doesn't sound fun to you, just don't play that way. Play the way that you do find fun. It'll keep you playing longer. You'll probably learn more in the process. It will make you a better player in the long run if you are playing in a way that you find enjoyable. Disclaimer number two, as alluded to, we don't know everything. I know nothing, especially not about Orie. Um, but Exceed, certainly not season six, but Exceed is not a solved game. There are many lines you can take to total victory over your opponent. Uh, the line that we're prescribing in this lesson does not have to be yours. And in fact, maybe it shouldn't be if you have a better one. And if you do have a better one, please tell us about it because I'm dying to know. So take all of our expertise and all of our wisdom with a grain of salt and tell us why we're wrong. But with all that said, Rin, please, I am dying to know a little bit about Orie.
yeah. So I have now, since the season come out, had the joy of playing her both in the card game and in the fighting game, and there's a little bit of a difference for that.
Yep.
In the fighting game, her I almost called it a stand. Her The thing you see pictured in a few of her command cards is a slightly more commandable and present on the battlefield than she is here.
Mm.
Uh, you know, in the game, she kind of plays a little bit like Carl from season five, in
Like a
that you can
Zato kind of puppet character type.
yeah, it's not nearly as intense or intricate as any of the other ones. It's minor amounts of commanding, but in this, it's less represented, which is interesting. And I kind of like the way they've executed the idea of her as a character in this, because it feels a lot more fun to me. I played Eddie and Zato. I've played Carl, and it's always an interesting balance of moving things around. And in this, I don't have to think about that. I just have to think about, oh, these are my abilities. I don't have to think about a second piece's movement
Right.
or things like that.
Right.
Um,
So in Undernight, I have not played a ton of Undernight, but in the fighting game, my understanding of Orie is that she is a very like blue Shoto kind of neutral monster character, uh, contrasted with a character like I don't know, like Wagner from Undernight, who is much more in your face, rush down. Is that pretty much correct?
yeah, she's got a lot of longer distance moves. It's been a while since I've played Under Night, but she isn't she doesn't want to be in anyone's face. She doesn't, but she has options when she's there. and she sort of wants to poke and find advantages where she can get them and sort of convert them into other things. And it comes across in her kit
Okay.
as well in this game.
Okay, so maybe broadly, even before we talk about any of her actual options, can we sort of take uh, as a given that that's sort of the general high level game plan that we're looking to do? Is this sort of like poking, uh, neutral based approach to the game?
Yeah, there she has a lot of poke, and when we get into talking about her front side and her back side, it sort of changes things. But at a high level, you're sort of just playing as neutral as you can, except for when you have those really good windows of opportunity that you see. You know, this is my time to get, and it's now or never to go for it.
Right. So you're waiting for your opportunities as your opponent's like options thin out. You're kind of like waiting to pounce.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense to me. Um, yeah. Shall we get into the kit? I'm good to follow your lead, however you want to talk about it.
Yeah, let's get into the kit. We can start with the most important side of her part of her kit, in my opinion, is her unique action that she has. It is not the same between the front side and the exceed side, and it's kind of important to start with the front side because this, it's how you start the game. It creates a fun guessing game with her action, which is strike. Your specials and ultra attacks have +2 armor.
Okay.
On the face value, that's a pretty simple thing, but as with previous seasons that have unique actions, it creates a guessing game for your opponent as well. Because you don't have to set a special or ultra, and in fact, it's a fun guessing game for most of my opponents who played against my Ori. You know, it increases your ability to bluff what you're doing, so that you're creating. It's harder for your opponent to decide, oh, is this just the safe normal, or is this one of the specials or ultras that's a little riskier, but with that bonus armor, you're not punished as hard if it fails to connect. So
Right, right. Okay. And so the upside of this, if you do, leverage it on a special or ultra, is literally just that you basically have more effective life as Orie, right? Like you can trade better. You're not going to die as quickly, which kind of is like that's its own reward.
correct.
Okay.
Between her specials and ultras, uh, 5 of the 7 of them have some way to be stun immune or completely avoid damage. And then the added armor on top of that is it gives you a huge benefit to just, you know, hey, I made the wrong call. I'm not being punished nearly as hard, so I've got, over the course of game, maybe 10 extra life total.
Okay. So ideally, I guess, the way that +2 armor would work optimally on a blank character is like because I have this bonus armor, I'm going to not be stunned when I otherwise would have been stunned, and that's going to let me trade when I otherwise wouldn't have been trading. On Orie, that doesn't sound like it's really a problem because I have a ton of stun immune stuff anyway.
Yeah, you have a bunch of stun immune or just attack avoidance. You have a speed trap. You have a range trap.
Right.
It's just on her. It's just I don't want to say pure extra life because there's you can be spiked, you can be spike equivalented, but it translates to you have a safety net to keep you from being punished for making the wrong choice when it does happen.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And so as the Orie player, and the other thing that's important about this and all other Undernight characters is that this is an action that you're taking on your turn, right? So you can't do this on defense and survive your opponent's attacks very well. It really is something like if you're striking, you have a failsafe rather than you're just really hard to kill when your opponent is punching you.
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
uh, and then it sort of transitions into the second part of her kit, which is her exceed side, uh, which is her action becomes 1 gauge strike. Your attack has hit your printed power becomes equal to the printed power of the top card of your discard.
Okay.
So there's another thing you've seen there's another season 6 character, maybe 2, that do similar things where you grab information from the top card of your discard pile to get information. Now, a big thing you'll notice when we're going through all of her her specials and ultras is there's not that many big numbers in terms of power, but what this does is it lets you, at a certain point, catch in whatever gauge you have to start making your hits more meaningful and more impactful. You
Right.
know,
So the way that this would work in practice is I've decided to exceed as Orie. I have, I don't know, uh this in my gauge, this in my gauge. Um I spend my turn doing this action. When I do it, I spend a gauge. This is now in my discard pile. I have stacked my discard pile. I know ahead of time, and so does my opponent, what my final power is going to, or I'm sorry, what my printed power is going to be. Is that correct?
yes, and that's an important distinction. It becomes the printed power, so you will still get your boosts. So if you have, uh, it's superior in the season. So if you have superior in the season going, if you have any of your other bonuses or boosts that give you power,
Sure.
she has one, and I think there might be another one in the normals kit. But any boosted to power, if your opponent, you're playing against an Akuma and they've given you bonus power, any effect like that will still apply. And it's an important distinction because she has a boost that changes total power of a strike.
Okay, so
So,
and that one when we get to it, that's like a real replacement effect. This is a
yes.
it replaces the base and then you can modify on top of it.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess the way that you talked about this when we flipped RA over was that you would um when you exceeded, this would not be something that you then wanted to just mash over and over again. You're looking for an opportunity when you have something in your gauge that has a high power value to
You're
be able to spend it, correct?
yeah, you're looking for two things really. You want a high power, ideally you have access to five, sixes, and sevens. She has an ultra with a seven. You have sweep with a six. You
Sure.
have spike with a five, and you have sacred arrow with a five as well.
Okay.
Dive. You have options for five, six, seven. Those are the ideal. Uh, you have options like you have a normal that or a special that hits for two power. So even just upgrading that to from two to four or two to three is effectively getting half a boost to a boost worth of bonus power. Perfect world, you're always looking for at least going from whatever number to a five. You know, the ultimate world is you want to get the seven, and that's the dream.
Right. Right.
But you know, you don't necessarily you want to be very careful with this because it also downgrades as well. If for whatever reason you weren't paying attention, I'm not speaking from experience. I've never done this, not at all. You
Never.
know, if you action and your discarded card for the action is a grasp and you're going with Sacred Arrow, you now have a three power.
Sure. Or if for whatever reason your discard order, we're talking about this as though you're uh as though really what you're doing is pulling from gauge. But if, for example, you threw, I don't know, um, something onto Sacred Arrow for whatever reason, and your opponent swept you before that went off, uh, sweep would lose the speed die. If your opponent hit you with something that caused you to discard a card, is my point.
Yeah, I was about to say a sweep adjacent card that's
Yeah,
faster or whatever.
yeah.
Yes, that lost card would impact what you're getting out of it as well, and that's an
Okay,
important lesson to keep for that.
okay. But for the most part, when we're thinking about this ability, we can kind of treat it as I know it says discard, but because it has a gauge cost on it, we're effectively treating it as something from our gauge, correct?
With the exception of when you're striking with your ultras, yes, it's just something from your gauge.
Sure, okay. And your ultras actually would have because they have an additional gauge cost that you would pay on reveal.
Yeah, yes,
That would change it further. Okay, that makes sense.
yep. So it's an important step you have to keep in mind. Just it only takes one missed sequence for you to have a slightly bad time thinking about it in
Right.
retrospect.
I hit with two on my sweep or something. You got the order wrong.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess the other two questions, the main questions I have about this ability and actually this ability as well. One of them is because these are actions that I'm taking on my turn, I know from previous lessons that they would conflict with like any now strike boost. So mix up, just defense, tech hit, things like that. You can't do that and also use Aurier's ability. Um, on front side, it sounds to me like unless you're using one of those tools, this is like free. Like this is free value. There's kind of no reason to strike with Aurier unless you're using a now strike boost without using this action. Is that correct?
Unless you really are wanting to get into the absolute best of the best mind games with someone, it's free value just to go with the action, you know.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
The,
All right, I see. So like you might be by not using this, you might be telegraphing that you're using a normal, but only if they've already been like conditioned to expect. Yeah. Like
yeah,
that's
it, it,
a playing your opponent thing, not a playing Aurier thing. It sounds like.
correct.
Um, but then on this side, because this is like sort of an opportunistic thing that you're looking for in very certain circumstances when you can like confirm a big hit from your exceed side, you would strike often, probably without ever using this ability until you need it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You know,
Okay. 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 Um,
uh,
okay. And then I guess the other question that I had was how often or how frequently you personally exceed at all as Aurier. I've talked to some other people just casually in on Discord and stuff who are pretty exclusively front side Aurier players, and then another handful of people who actually really like her exceed side as kind of a kill shot.
yeah, so the my experience has always been, and this is kind of just a thing I noticed with season 6, is there's not a good hard and fast answer for what you want to do. You kind of have to take it game by game and even turn by turn. Um, I think her backside is a fantastic tool as a kill shot tool. You know, you kind of you want to spend, let's call it 75% of the game in front side, you know, building up your advantage, building up your gauge, you know, sort of curating your moment for that. It's kind of like playing your boost as a set play character, except you're curating your gauge for that opportunity where you can go in for, you know, advantage chaining or just a straight up stun immune high damage attack to get the what is hopefully going to be your kill. So I've
Okay.
spent entire games where I'm frontside Ori the whole game, and you know, at the end of the game, it's close, and just that frontside kept me in it. But I'm never afraid to exceed and just have options for. Well, now what are you going to do? I'm threatening this, this, and this attack, and they all could have 6, 7 power.
Right.
You know,
Okay. And I guess the way that Undernight's season works is when I'm this Aurier, I do basically always have access to this if I need it because I can take the revert action.
correct.
Um,
And yeah, revert is great for that. You know, if you go for that window and you miss it, and you're just like, well, I now just need the armor. You know, pitch something that doesn't help you right now into your gauge, revert, and you have the armor again for your half of the attacking sequences.
okay. Okay. That makes sense. And then you can just kind of play that value game and hope to outlast your opponent. All right. And for I guess completeness sake, what I have heard from other people who do prefer frontside Aurier like all the time forever is just that +2 armor on your attacks, exactly as you're saying, Rin, will just kind of just let you outlast the opponent, and you can just play exceed like that. And then the people who are more advocates of the exceed side Aurier, it sounds like they are talking about it pretty much the way you are, which is like it's still like a sometimes food, even if you like this mode. You're looking for it as a you're always looking for the opportunity rather than uh proactively building to the point where you are you know, like how do I put this? Um I don't know. If we pulled
Say
a,
my
if
go-to season 7 character is Testament, and my goal in Testament is always exceed
yeah,
because
there
you
you go.
just
No,
get
yeah.
flat value.
Yeah, we're on the same page here. So yeah, no, like your game plan as Testament is on turn one. You're like, all right, how do I exceed? Or like Chun Li from Street Fighter is a good example. With Aurier, it's like I need to be open to the possibility that I might exceed, and I would like to be proactive and build to that moment, but I'm being more opportunistic than I would be if I was playing a character who is like that, like engine focused. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, the exceed it's another part of your toolkit. It's not your end goal.
Okay. Okay. That makes perfect sense to me. Okay, cool. So as we're talking about all of these, it sounds like for about 75% of the time, and therefore maybe 75% of the lesson, or maybe 75% of our viewers' headspace, we should be kind of mentally appending 2 armor to all of these attacks, because they often will have them when I'm initiating.
Yes.
Okay. Makes sense to me. Should we jump into the kit? Anything else you want to say about Orie herself, like her character ability?
Um, I mean, it's just the important thing that's been drilled into me over games is you just have to keep reminding yourself that you have the ability and how the ability is actually just written.
Right. Right. Expect it to come from your gauge. Be careful of discard effects, things like that. Don't sequence things wrong. I think if you're playing on like browser exceed or something like that DT has developed, it's like the last card you discarded from your gauge is the one that will be on top of your discard pile. So like if you're if you're in like a, rules enforced setting where it's going programmatically, make sure you don't like mess up the sequencing, things like that.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk her kit then. Because it sounds like, because this is sort of a free value ability most of the time, most of how we're going to be thinking about playing her is going to come from these cards.
Oh yes.
Okay. And I'm good to start with whatever one you want to. If there's a particularly important one, attack or boost, that you want to mention first, and we can just go in whatever order you want.
We can just go down the line, starting with Divine Thrust.
Okay. Sounds good.
Um, yeah. A thing you'll notice kind of throughout her kit is that her ideal range is sort of two. She's got options for longer ranges, and Divine Thrust is sort of this one that's going to teach you important lessons about your sequence of events.
Okay.
It's her only fast attack. It's her only fast special attack. Everything else is mid to low speeds. And it has that wonderful after advance 4,
Right.
which
So
can get you in trouble sometimes if you're not paying a whole lot of attention.
okay,
Uh, you
so
know,
so the way that this would work on the board, let's move these cards really quick and grab our training dummy Ryu here. Because in my head, this looks like a cross that you can use in the corner, right?
yes,
Um,
uh,
so I'm here, I initiate with Divine Thrust. I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
yes.
Okay.
Now,
Um, yeah,
that's a
tell
great
me tell
place
me
to
about tell me about
be.
this trouble that I'm gonna get into.
That's a great place to be most of the time, but you have to be cognizant of if you have an option to capitalize from this position, and if all of your options that you have available to you right now are worse than some of your opponent's options at this distance. So looking at your normal kit, you still have assault. You still have all of your other options. You can cross out if you really want to from here if your opponent initiates a strike here.
Right.
But in Ori's toolkit herself, she's a little lacking on things to capitalize from this range. She has 2 specials and 1 ultra that hit here at this range, and her ultra that hits at this range is not the best here.
Right. And they're
It's not
also
the
both 2 speed. So if your opponent is like or if your opponent's initiating with anything, probably anything that moves them, certainly is going to be tough to actually land a hit.
You are stun immune on those two 1 to 3 or 1 to 3 and the 3 to 5, but the 3 to 5 misses if they initiate any movement.
Right.
The 1 to 3 they can just dive over the 1 to 3, and then your stun immune doesn't amount to much. You didn't get stunned, but you don't get any of the rest of
Right.
it because they
Yeah. Who
dived
cares
over
if
you.
you didn't get stunned? You didn't hit back or anything.
Yeah.
So
So
the way that you're describing this, when I said cross, it gets you out of the corner. This actually does remind me quite a bit of I'm here as Orie, I'm here as a character, right? And I cross out, and then I go, oh man, I don't have anything that hits at range 4 or hits at range 5. That's like a very common thing that kind of balances out how good cross is at dodging things. Is many characters just don't. have the ability to uh, hit from far away. But with Orie, even range 3 is like kind of dicey for her, so I need to make sure that I've got a follow up ready. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you just need to get out of dodge, by all means throw it. It's the same with cross. If you die, you can't take additional game actions. So even if you're in the corner and you can still take a game action, even if they're not great, you're alive to take those additional game actions to try and find something that will help you. But you have to be cognizant of the choices you make could put you in a position where, your hand is just not going to be able to deliver and you're going to have to take time off to regenerate resources or just try and find something to do from where you're at.
Sure. Okay. Okay. So much like with cross, I would use this to dodge like a really big important move.
Yeah,
I've got an ultra scouted, and I need to get out of the way. I also noticed because this is after movement, like I mean,
yeah. If I was about to say,
most characters do not have an answer into Ryu in this position. I could potentially initiate with divine thrust and just come in.
yes, and
Okay.
that's the other important part of that front side is, you know, it's risky, sure, but it's one card for you probably are doing this with 2 armor, and it's move 4 for one card.
Right.
It's not going
So
to be great time, but it is, like you've pointed out, tech to get yourself in if you're dealing with someone who wants to put you out of range. Now you have an option that's relatively fast to
oh
get
yeah.
yourself in, and now you
Yeah, I mean,
can start applying pressure.
there are a lot of, and I mean, Ryu is our training dummy here. I like Metsu Hadoken is a absolute monster of an ultra at range 5. Um, and it's pretty safe out there, unless you have something like this that just lets you dip under it. So there's some dodge tech you can use with this. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that would occur to me to ask about this. Anything else that you want to say about divine thrust, other than just watch out where you'll land with it?
Yeah. Um, it's tempting to throw its boost out because it gives you a reposition and a power, but honestly, to me, it feels more like a useful tool for setting up your kill shots later. If you're on the backside, 1-2 speed 6 with whatever power you can give it is real nice to consider.
Sure, that's a very consistent uh, thing to initiate with, right?
Yep.
You've got even something being on curve sometimes is not enough to guarantee damage because cross exists. But this even would catch cross. So you make it 7 power, and suddenly you've got an ultra on your hands.
Yep.
Okay,
A
okay,
one gauge ultra, even.
right, okay. Um, oh, I guess the other thing that occurs to me about this one, if I'm at if I'm at range 1 and I initiate with this, like similar to what cross does, I would get to here and therefore like dodge a sweep or something, which is
Yes.
cool. Do I have anything better to do at range 4 than I do at range 3, or is that like kind of equally or even more of a positioning negative situation for me?
So range 4 unlocks your range trap option on your 3 gauge ultra, which you are not hit at ranges 4 and 5. So that if you are suddenly with the gauge online, that is now a new option there. Um, it resets dive as a viable option if you still have access to it, and you have a 3 to 5 stun immune. So it's not the worst. You're still losing options the further and further you go from your opponent. But, I actually kind of would rather be at range 4 most of the time.
Okay. And is also it's kind of nice to dodge a sweep, so there's upside there too. So
Oh, yes.
don't be particularly afraid if I need to get out of something uh at range 1 to just use this undercurve to just nope out of a strike.
Yeah, it's the same reason that just crossing out of things is good. If, like I said before, if you're alive, you can take an additional game action to make up for whatever downed position you're in from it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
if the game's
So
over, you can't make up for a mistake you've made.
right. So honestly, I mean, and that actually kind of seems like the ethos that Orie lives by, given her character ability, is going to keep her alive pretty well. So like if you make mistakes, if you like, you have ways to like kind of paper over those mistakes in your kit. It seems like.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And you mentioned aggressive briefly as like a useful neutral boost, but it sounds like you slightly prefer divine thrust.
I prefer Divine Thrust unless I'm playing against someone who's sort of being passive enough that I can set things up. But like, if someone's playing passive enough that I can set things up, I'd probably just still rather have Divine Thrust as a 1 to 2 power equal to the top printed card of my gauge,
Right.
speed 6.
Yeah.
Then
As a way to just confirm that in exceed mode. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Um, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but a lot of these boosts look very similar now that I'm looking at them.
yeah, and that's one of the things that people kind of have commented on. Her boost game is, you know, I play Rachel from season 5. Rachel's a set play character. She does a lot of boosting.
Definitely.
She's a trap character. She has traps. I've played Ori, and the amount of times I've boosted with my specials or ultras is kind of on the lower side.
Okay.
Uh, you know, all of the boosts do give you some amount of movement. I think there might be one that doesn't give you any
Yeah.
movement.
I think yeah, I guess the ruler kind of does, but yeah, looks like fifth executor does not give you movement. All of your special boosts do.
Yeah. So you're getting a benefit. So you're getting a stat boost, you're getting a strike, or you're getting something else,
Right.
and you're getting movement. So that part, that's great. Like I said, she does kind of want to control where she is. So getting a little added value on top of the movement is always going to be great. Uh, but
But it's just not super impactful compared to what you could be doing on your turn. It sounds like.
correct.
Okay. So the criteria that we would need to meet in order to want to boost aggressive is, first of all, we don't need divine thrust anymore. Also, we need power. Also, we need to move. And like if
Yes.
all of those things are true, then go ahead and boost it because it's fine, right? It's a
Yeah.
functional neutral boost you can play if you don't need to strike into your opponent or something. Is that kind of just also true of all of these?
Yeah, that's the thing you're going to me, command order is the only one that kind of you have a different level of thought process for, because that's the only one that does not give you an incidental additional stat.
Right,
Instead, it gives you access to a strike. But if it's going to give you a stat, or it's going to give you, some sort of change like that, that's generally the line of thought is, if getting the incidentals out of this is a perfectly fine thing from taking off the turn from the attack, then yeah, it's boostable.
right.
Otherwise,
Yeah. But I mean, to your point, that like boostable is not like the craziest endorsement I've ever heard on an excess succeed lesson, right? Like
yeah,
it is a possible thing you can do. Is like that's not great. Um,
yeah,
so like looking at +1 power, knowing I know from previous lessons, like that's not a lot. It is not going to, unless it is like going to overturn a strike interaction or something. And looking at Aurier's power numbers, I don't really see it.
no,
Right?
yeah.
Like
The
what are you putting uh this power on that's actually going to be impactful in the first place? I guess it would have to be a normal.
Yeah, yeah. You don't get a breakpoint out of +1 power often. So like in a situation, it's a game of situations, and if you find that one situation where without a doubt this one thing is coming at me that, oh, I just need that one more power to break the guard,
Right.
it's your option there, and that's kind of how all the rest of the boosts are going to go. Oh, does this +1 armor, +1 guard, does that get me out of a break point that I know is coming?
Right.
Things
Right.
like that.
Yeah, yeah, because actually the exact same thing. There aren't any cards in Exceed that or there are very few, right? Like a couple, actually a couple of Orioles cards do this, but like very there are no normals, for example, that hit for 2. So this defensive boost on its own would not keep you from being stunned from almost anything. So
Yeah.
like you are looking for specific situations where you need this for some particular card that you are scouting from your opponent. Otherwise, like with all of these boosts, it seems like you can kind of ignore them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. 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 Um, shall we move on to the next card then?
Yes, and that will be to me command order. So, important thing on note on this one. Uh, I'm going to call it focus light.
Sure.
It has the cannot be pushed or pulled clause. Uh, in place of having five 2 armor, 5 guard, this just has stun
Stun
immune.
immune. Right.
And it's going to be the first of Ori's cards that has a sort of recurring theme, which is hit gain advantage.
Okay.
You also get an advance or retreat one. So you have now a second option against someone grasping you. Always a great choice. No one really likes the getting thrown out into the ranges you don't like being. So it's great for that. It's stun immune. And it's slow, so it will give you advantage if someone assaults into you and you call that right. This is going to either
Steal
keep
advantage
turn
back.
order, yeah, it's going
Sure.
to keep
Okay.
turn order normal, or it's going to steal it.
Right. Okay.
So it's important for that regard. And Ori has Orie has 4 advantage cards, not counting assault.
Oh wow. Okay. So that's actually that's like a critical massive advantage. You can take a lot of turns in a row with her. So with with this, I when you say focus, focus light, what immediately comes to mind is that this is a card that you can use very very effectively on defense because it's probably just going to be like a safe, decent defensive option. But also initiating with this would give you armor to make it even more like focus and advantage. And uh, a movement effect and an advantage together is actually pretty good to help you play your hand. Um, so do you more frequently find yourself striking with this, or is this more of a defensive card for you?
So I do like striking with it more. If I have a hand that I'm sitting on that has even just one other advantage card that I think I can convert into actual advantage, I would probably go with this on the offense. If I'm sitting on a hand that's this and then everything else is normals, then it might be a defensive card, but a lot of the time, the I've mentioned incremental advantage. This is a great start to incremental advantage.
Okay,
If you're holding on to 3 advantage cards in your hand, starting with this one and going to the next 3, and you can actually confirm all of them, it's pretty devastating if your opponent takes 3 strikes in a row, and then that fourth turn they just get to do something else, whether it's another strike or change cards, prepare, boost. Anything that you do after 4 turns is probably going to be an intense amount of pressure to your opponent, who's now down 3 cards.
sure, sure, okay. And so obviously, I know you mentioned earlier that a chain like that suddenly feels a lot better when you're hitting for 5 or 6 or 7 instead of 2 or 3. Um, So this seems like it'd be a great card if you are trying to set up a payout in your exceed mode. But is it also just like a like if you can basically what I'm asking is if you can set that up on front side, if you have all the cards to do a big advantage chain like that on front side and just get armor every time, are you like happy to do that, or are you trying to save cards like this for your exceed mode?
It's going to depend a bit on the tempo of the game to me, but in a perfect vacuum, I'm playing against the person who's playing the correct speed curve option at every distance. I still think, a chain of 3 advantage with ultimately 6 armor across it, I'm content doing.
Right.
Yes, a perfect world, finishing off a game with this is great, but if I can take 3 game actions and net myself more than, net myself 6 damage out of it, I'm content to do that on front side for sure.
Okay, sure, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, we're playing a game with a randomized deck or a randomized deck order. Like you might draw these early and not have anything good in your gauge. and you don't want to be
Yeah.
sitting on those things. You can be proactive with things like this.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Um, shall we talk about aerial leap then?
Yes. So this is the one where it kind of has the most decision trees to it. You know, at face value, it's one card for move 4. That's just really good rate because that's, you know, that doesn't exist kind of anywhere else.
Yeah,
Eh,
even among our normal boosts, like we don't have a 1 for 4. We have a couple of 1 for up to 3s or a 1 to 3, or a 1 for 3 rather. But even going back to previous seasons, I think backstep could do it, but retreating, which is almost never as useful as advancing. So this is a lot of movement.
Yeah. So it's a lot of movement. So, if you're up against some character that wants to keep you at the absolute maximum range, 1 to 4 is just that's good rate. You're closing in, you're finding your place here that sort of deals with, you know, someone zoning you out. So that's great. And then it has the added effect of if you advance past your opponent, you may strike.
Sure.
And that's just a really strong thing. There's a lot of now strike effects in this season, and not all of them, you don't enjoy all of them sometimes, the tech for the season having, uh tech the boost, then the strike.
Yep. Mix up.
It's bird Yeah.
There's oh, I didn't even catch what you were talking about. Sorry, I was grabbing a boost. This is you may strike. That's actually
Yeah.
crazy.
So yeah, that's the two parts of it is, this season is all of the now strike effects. They don't always feel great to do.
Oh
I've
yeah.
teched a boost where I just went, well, I'm really just never coming out of this positive from anything, but I need that boost gone before it becomes, an unexpected hit for 10. I
Right.
need to nip this at the bud now. This has the May strike on this. That's huge. If you make the movement and you're looking at a hand, you know where your opponent's two focuses are, you know where their two sweeps are, and you've got a grasp in hand, and you're at range 3 like we're at right now,
Right.
or range 4 like you're at right now in this setup.
Sure.
You advance past them, and now you suddenly have a safe grasp to put them wherever you want.
Right. So this is actually if you're looking for something to do after you've divine thrusted out and your hand is full of melee options, aerial leap is a way to play that hand from whatever situation you're in, pretty much.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
You
that makes
lose the
sense.
2 armor because you're not going to be able to take your action.
Right.
But that card basically just reads move 4, and then if you happen to do this flag and you can capitalize on it, you get to do that fun thing you wanted to do anyway.
Right. Okay. Okay. And yeah, honestly, like what you were saying about like sometimes you would rather not strike with a lot of Underknight's boost kits. I can't tell you the number of times that I've felt like I play some Linne, and I cannot tell you the number of times that I've wanted to be able to just like take a turn
You
off and do
I was about to
something
say
else.
you wanted to just tech that and not have to commit to a
Yeah.
strike afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. That I there are so many characters and so many situations in Undernight where you would love something like this. And I'm
Yes.
noticing now we've talked about sort of like a little bit most of the special boosts because they're very similar to aggressive. All of these are neutral tools. They're things that that actually are allowing you to slow the pace of the game down a little bit. Admittedly for kind of anemic value, but like comparing that to what Linne has in her kit or what a lot of other Under Night characters have, Orie can like play neutral, which is weird for the
Yes.
season.
Yeah. For a season that feels so aggressive in other ways, it feels weird that Orie wants to slow the game down and sort of play a different game. And I think that's sort of one of the disconnects that a lot of people have had. You look at
Yeah,
the rest of the season and you're like, oh, this just goes fast, one way
right.
or the other.
Yeah,
Like,
this is a game that I'm going to play when I have a bus to catch. So
yeah,
because Orie has all of these tools that let her slow the game down, does that make her neutral good? Is that something that we want to be doing with Orie, or is it just like because again you mentioned that these are pretty like these are acceptable, these are boostable options. Um, that's it doesn't sound like that's my game plan necessarily. It sounds like that's something that I can do if I need to do them.
Yeah, it's definitely do if you need to do, but it's never your game plan. You're not playing a set play character. You're not, you don't spend your turns building up to this checkmated boosted attack that, your opponent can't do. You're doing incidental jabs where you can, and if you see something coming and your boost can that neutral play of the boost can save you or set yourself up better, it's great. Otherwise, you're probably going to be looking for another action to take on your turn.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So yeah, all of these it sounds like. So we've got we can probably like copy and paste everything we said about aggressive and just sort of put them on tactical, defensive, and wide, which is a very funny name for a boost, by the way.
Yes.
Um, and basically, like it's kind of always going to be the same. Like if you need range and some movement, it's there for you and you can do it. If you need a little bit of armor and guard and some movement, you can do it. Like that's kind of the advice for all of these boosts. It sounds like.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Your
Okay.
your ultras have a different game to them, but like when we get to the ultras, we can go into them.
Sure.
But that works for all of the specials.
Sounds good. Okay. Yeah. So let's maybe for these last three, we can just talk about the attacks, and if there is anything incredibly useful about the boosts, we can mention them. But
Yeah. So Ceiling Hop 1 is the next one. Uh, you know, another stun immune card in Orie's kit, with Ignore Guard, and the same hit, advance, or retreat, and gain advantage.
okay.
So uh, you think your opponent's going to come in with a sweep. They're initiating and they're going to sweep you. Well, that sweep's not going off because 2 damage to 0 guard. That's going to break it. It's not the flashiest card in the kit. It doesn't have the same amount of protectiveness as can't be moved, but it's just a solid tool for getting around a high guard move that comes in slow. You can't go wrong with stun immune most of the time.
Right.
Even if you're at 1 and you have the ability to be thrown, you're still going to hit someone that grasps you to range 3 with it.
Yeah.
And it's
Something that I've noticed. I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm noticing a trend here that might be worth talking about. Like we've talked about situations with all of these cards where they would be like very good to play, right? Like if you can dodge a sweep with Divine Thrust, do it. If you can resist a important push effect with To Me Command Order, do it. If you can stun out a sweep, do it. But like all of these seem like they have very modest loss conditions to me. Like when they're not in their perfect situation where you can get something awesome out of them, they're still like fine. They'll still work okay. If you have some armor on top of them, they'll be okay. And then if you happen to be in the perfect situation, you'll get like extra value out of them. Is that like I'm trying to think how to put this, but like it seems like when
you're
Orie
not
will
playing
I'm sorry, go ahead.
you're not playing a big numbers game, but that's on both sides of it. You're not going to win big, but you're also not going to lose big, and you're sort of generating. You're doing the small things you can to get to a point where either your opponent has died by death by 1,000 cuts, or you have this big payoff where you can do something big and flashy to just sort of close it out.
To end the game, sure. Okay, so all of these cards, like at worst, they'll probably work fine. They'll probably do a little bit of what I want. If I can call out a sweep with Ceiling Hoplon, I'm pretty clearly quite far ahead because sweep is an important card to not get hit by. But like even if I don't, and I just hit back with a grasp, I hit a grasp back rather. I'm still like fine. I'm still in the game. I probably didn't like lose that strike. Um,
Yeah.
and that's so like Orie's worst case with a lot of these cards is like fine. But her
Yes.
best case with those cards is like fine to good, basically.
Yes.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. And same hit effect is on Command Order. I noticed too. Um,
Yes.
so all of the same advice that we could give about Command Order about like whether you're using this on offense or defense, pretty much the same here. You would do you'd prefer to initiate with it most of the time.
Yeah, pretty much. This one's the one that I'm leaning more towards defensive, just from that range 1 to 3. But it's perfectly fine to initiate with. Uh, you just have to be mindful of your opponent's dive cards, because few things feel worse than getting dived over at that range. But
Right.
beyond that, it's a
Right.
solid to initiate with. It's solid to defend with.
Okay. So yeah, again, honestly, very similar to what we've talked about in terms of advice for the other cards. It's just like it'll probably work okay.
Yep.
Um, what about succession?
The succession is one of the ones where it gets a little weirder. I mean, it's 3 to 5, 3 power, 2 speed, stun immune, hit, pull 3, and gain advantage. So it's the first time she gets advantage but doesn't move herself. She moves
Right.
the opponent.
Right.
If you're against someone who has fireball effects, who has some sort of fireball adjacent effects, boosted range, what have you, you know, they're going to strike you and they're going to stay at that far distance. This is a great tool. It follows all the other things. You know, if you're initiating, even if you lose, you're probably not going to lose that big. If you're defending, you getting the ultimate say in that where they move and who gets the next turn. It's important. It's not flashy. It's not the best fireball I've ever seen. It's not the worst fireball I've ever seen. It just solidly does its job. It gives you an option when you're at that far range and you have to think about, what might you do.
Right. Okay. Sure. And so the way that this hit effect would work, it sounds like so if I hit at 3, for example, I'd pull past me and get to range 1. If I hit at 4, I would pull to range 1. If I hit at 5, I would pull to range 2. So this is going to set range 1 on one side or another of me, or range 2, both of which are ranges that I'm quite happy with.
Yep.
Okay. So, and I don't really have very much else that hits out to range 4 or 5. So, like, if I would obviously never be going out here specifically to set up succession. I'm not like a zoner. But if I'm
No.
here, I'll just use it to set the range I want to be anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're through your aerial leap or through some sequence of events that are beyond your control, you end up at this range. You have an option, and it pretty solidly does things at this option to set you to be able to take your game plan the way you want it to going
Okay.
forward.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's very strange seeing a character with like this much stun immunity, this much redundancy on what her boosts do, and this much like these two hit effects do the same thing. This is a similar movement and advantage thing. But like again, we're talking about a game with a lot of situations. This it doesn't imply like a specific line. It just implies like a suite of tools that will all be like pretty good.
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
And
that's an interesting character.
yeah, it's an
Um,
important, to touch on that point, there are characters you play where you have a game plan. Uh, I'm going to use my Arakune mulliganing strategy, which is: do I have this boost I want? No. Pitch the whole hand, try and get the boost.
right, right,
That is unless I'm playing absolute next level mind games with Faust when he and I are playing a game, that is the game plan that I'm taking for my mulligan every single game. And then I have other things to think about later. With Orie, there is no set game plan. You look at your hand and go, all right, this
right,
line would work, but this line also works, and you sort of you take it more turn by turn than anything else. It's
right.
not deterministic, it's just see what each turn gives you.
You're here to play Exceed, basically. You're not necessarily crafting an end game from turn 1 the way that like a seventh cross character or an Arakune would.
Yes,
Um, okay, and her particular flavor of Exceed is fairly low value on both sides of the board, but very consistent and just able to chip away and plink away at the opponent over and over again.
for sure.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Um, shall we move on to Sacred Arrow?
Yes, and this is the one that my opponents have had the most field spad moments with. You know, People have
Right.
varying degrees of opinions about speed traps. It's an important part of her kit. Uh, And it's important to note that it's just attacks with speed 5 or greater do not hit you. It's your Dragon Punch. The literal input for this is the Dragon Punch input, which I am trash at doing in fighting games, but you dodge some attacks. It does not have stun immune. It does not have any movement. It does not have anything special to it. Just if you think the dodge is coming, if you think if they're boosted +2 speed, and they've got like an attack in hand that printed as 2 or printed as speed 3, you have an option to defend yourself. As people are boosting speed, this becomes better and better. As they have faster and faster options, it's better.
Right. Yeah.
Beyond that,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, beyond that, I was going to say I think this is the most. I would be more inclined to boost it than anything else, depending on how the game is going. Just because, if you're playing against a slow opponent or they're not taking time to boost, its applications are harder to justify with that speed 2 it's got. But
Right. This is kind of the first one where, like, if it's not working well, it's not working at all.
yes,
All of these ones, as we've been talking about, are like their expected value is fairly low, but they're always going to do something probably. This one is like a call out option.
yes,
Um, I guess similar to Divine Thrust as a way to like dodge projectiles. You can do this just as a way to dodge without hitting back. Like if you're trying to avoid Metsu Hadoken, a 7 damage ultra, you don't have to land this card
yeah,
to dodge the
yeah. No,
the okay. So it's a very strong like anti checkmate tool.
yes.
Um,
If you see that speed 5-7 power spike is coming, this beats it. Block doesn't, but this will keep you alive.
right,
It's not glorious. It's not the ultimate, but again, the point I get back to is if you get to take the game actions, you get to keep going for something better.
right. I mean I also noticed that this is like uh, as strong as two of our cards put together that we've been talking about so far. It's a um 5 power is the biggest number that we've seen on this whole kit so far. So landing
Yes,
this
it
is
is.
actually like relative to what Orie is doing is a pretty big life swing. I say that, but as I'm saying it, it occurs to me that like I can't simultaneously hit with this and also get my armor from it. Because if I'm hitting with this, my opponent, I guess, unless they respond with focus or sweep or something,
Yeah,
and then I'm a little bit sad. But
yeah,
okay,
yeah. So this is the card that when it pays off, it is going to pay off big. But finding those payoff big times, you know, I've been able to use it fairly successfully. I consider it to be, one of the things that I keep in the toolkit. But like, there have been a lot of times where it's just sat in my hand and I've gone, well, I wish this was a different card.
right.
You know,
And it's probably toolkit is a good way to think of kind of all of the things that we've been talking about here. But it seems like it being in your hand is like generating some amount of value just because your opponent knows it's or like could know it's there and is afraid of it because
yes, it
speed dodges
is.
are things that like it's an anti-checkmate tool. You can hold it over your opponent's head and say you can't play that ultra into me. I have this card. But
Yes,
but doing that forever is just playing a card down basically
yeah,
in terms of your hand economy. Okay.
yeah. There's a point where let's call it after 3 turns of game actions. If it's sat in your hand that entire time, you've been down a card for 3 turns. You
Right.
know, the
Right.
the psychological warfare aspect of having the speed trap isn't. I'd rather just have had that extra card for 3 turns, probably. You know,
Right. Sure. That makes sense. I feel also excuse me. I also feel like if you're going to initiate with it, an EX Sacred Arrow loses to like exactly speed 4 defensive options and like
yeah,
nothing else basically. But then you would be giving up both copies of your anti-checkmate tool and that's like a commitment.
yeah.
Um but if
You
you
know,
did want to really just blow somebody up with this, it is pretty hard to stop. It trades up on sweep if you're initiating with your character ability. Um what a weird card.
it is. It is one of the weirdest. it is one of two Aurier's cards that are play big, win big, but also lose big when you fail.
Right.
So it's got a
Right.
great place in the toolkit. I would probably rather have a. I would rather its boost be just add this card to gauge most of the time, because then you have a
Sure.
safe way to get it into your
You've
gauge.
got 5
That,
damage, and 5 damage would be really nice for your Exceed mode.
yep.
And this is actually the first card that you would ever care about exceeding with, it seems like, that we've talked about so
Yes.
far. That okay, so if you did land this, that might incline you more to playing exceeded Ori than you would otherwise. Um
Correct.
okay. So anything else about the special kit, or should we move on to the ultras?
I don't think there's anything else really about the specials, so we can move on to the ultras.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good to talk about either of them in whatever order.
Let's just do Luminous Embrace. 3 gauge, 3 to 6, 7 power, 2 speed. Attacks at range 4 or greater do not hit you. After close 5 and gain advantage. Uh, it's slow, but you're playing a slow character. You know you're playing a slow character. Your opponent knows you're playing a slow character. Make of it what you will. There are windows that this is going to be a devastating attack. There are windows where, just have, Divine Thrust would be a better choice to throw out than this. It's sort of a card that when you have the window and you know you have the window, it's going to do brilliant things for you. Otherwise, it's sort of the play medium range, get medium prizes out of it.
Right. This seems like, I mean, first of all, I guess after close 5 and gain advantage, you don't even have to hit.
Yes.
Um, so if you are in a situation where like all you need to do is dodge something, if you're at range 8, for example, and you're up against new 13 or something, you do like this is another honestly, like I would like all of these seem a little bit like anti-checkmate tools. They're all ways to like keep you in the game.
Yes.
So, so you could use Luminous Embrace to just say, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, what's up? I'm in a range where I can play the game now.
Yes.
Obviously, you'd prefer to hit for 7 while you're doing that,
Oh, yes.
but like the loss case in that situation is that you have to pay 3 gauge to not die to your opponent's big range payout. Like if you're up against Sagat or something. Um,
Yep.
okay, okay. Do you find yourself playing this ultra often?
There are times where I don't play it at all. I use it to boost. There are times where it has won me games. It's it's the same as any other card in Ori's toolkit. The window is going to present itself, and you're going to remember those times. And then other times, it's just going to be another card to change, move, or boost with.
Mhm.
You know.
And
Uh,
similar to Sacred Arrow, this is something that my opponent is going to have to keep in mind as just like I am sometimes immune to ranged payouts. The same
yep.
way that I'm sometimes immune to speed based payouts. They have to like I can hold it over my opponent's head.
Yes. They
Okay.
always have to respect it. As soon as you have that 3 gauge online, it is a threat. And even when you don't have that 3 gauge online, this is one of the first times I feel like the boost is relevant to talk about.
Okay.
Again, now strike, hit, your total power becomes 5. Ignore printed values, bonuses, and penalties. Add this to your gauge. That's just a solid boost. As you've noticed, 4 of your 5 specials have less power than 5.
Right.
Uh, you have normals that have power lower than 5. This turns a grasp into a 5 power grasp, cross into 5 power, assault into 5 power, focus into 5 power. Although that one doesn't feel, as great.
Quite as impactful. But hey, you're getting force into your gauge and you're getting 7 power into your gauge, which are both pretty good.
That's the important thing. Yes, This is a easier and safer way to enable you to get this into your gauge.
Okay.
If you're playing someone that only ever wants to stand at range 1, popping that boost, dropping a focus into into whatever they're doing, and getting them, and getting 2 cards to gauge and drawing a card, not a bad rate. You have a 7 power engage now for flipping and hitting them for something impactful. This is kind of the first setup for a big hit you have.
Right. And if
Seven
you're
power on its own is great. 7 power in the gauge is a threat.
And if you're not planning to exceed or you can't find the opportunity, hey, that's two force in your gauge for later that's not clogging up your hand that you can change cards with or move with or something.
Yep.
Okay. Makes sense. So it sounds like often the boost is just going to be a valuable thing for you to do. Luminous Embrace is more matchup by matchup um,
Yep.
decided. Okay. And then
Yep.
how about Rest in Peace?
So Rest in Peace is, I want to call it the Exodia attack. There's, I'm sure you can see the line that is the ultimate thing you can do with it, but for everyone, and say 2 gauge ultra, range 1 to 2, power 1, speed 0, armor 6, hit if you were hit +6 power.
So,
Everyone knows when it's coming, but it's a
right,
question of whether they can do something about it when it is.
right. Okay. So I'm hitting for 7. I'm I have 6 armor on my attack. That's already crazy, right? Like
Yes.
that's a for 2 gauge. That's an unreal. I'm honestly just 6 armor for 2 gauge. I'll play that and just not hit with it if I need to. That sounds great. But
Yes.
if if I can do this in exceed mode, I would
And
get
you can.
I'd get the replacement effect and then the bonus power.
That is correct.
That sounds fun.
It's the Exodia play. It's
Yeah.
it's almost never going to happen, but hitting someone for 13 is a satisfying thing.
Yeah, as soon as you have like a sweep or a luminous embrace in your gauge and you use your exceed character ability and don't spend that card, your opponent's like, "Oh, okay,
Yes.
I'm about to die, aren't I?" Because you're about to
Yeah.
spend the other cards in gauge. So that's a 3 gauge play for
Yes.
13 and 6.
Yes.
um okay, yeah, that's crazy.
I I,
Um
I mentioned 2 cards that are play big, win big, or lose big. This is the other lose big.
okay,
As you mentioned, doing the ideal play is 3 gauge for 13 power, but they can cross out, they can dive, they can do any number of movement based tech to get
right,
themselves out of range.
right,
So its window of opportunity is, I think, the smallest of her entire toolkit. But as you mentioned, 2 gauge 6 armor is a better rate, is about the rate that you get for block. You're playing 3 cards to get 6 armor.
right,
You know,
right, and potentially hitting back for 7 at the
yes,
same
and
time.
potentially
Like
clocking for 7.
even without the exceed mode play, honestly, like, hey, here's 8 armor.
Yes,
Um Character ability, rest in peace, is like that's you just muscled your way through a whole lot of stuff at
yeah.
that power. Um, so are you often just using this as a way to not die?
Yeah, most of the games I've played it in, it has been a solid, oh, I'm just going to die here if they do X, Y, or Z thing. Well, X, Y, or Z thing doesn't do more than 6 damage, so
Right.
this
So
is,
I'll be
yeah,
fine.
yeah. This, in a lot of games, this reads 2 extra copies of block, conditional block. I'll call it
Yeah.
block light, I call it focus light. It's a similar thing. This reads, if you have 2 gauge, take 6 less damage
Yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and similar to what we've been talking about with the rest of Orie's kit, her character ability, everything. It's like this is a way to it isn't necessarily going to win you the game by doing things like that, but it is going to keep you from losing the game. It's a
yes.
consistent thing that you can probably just rely on happening to keep you, as you've said several times, to keep you taking more game actions later.
Yes.
Okay. That honestly makes sense. That really sounds like the game plan that we're going for is like play in a way that will allow you to continue playing after this turn. And Ori has a
Yes.
lot of ways to do specifically that.
Yes.
Okay.
I made the comment of death by 1,000 cuts. That's a lot of Gory's game plan is, if I can just keep taking game actions, I'm going to keep nicking you for 1 or 2 while I
Right.
also only take 1 or 2, and then I'll get that 1 or 2, 3 or 4 hits in. And I think at the end of the day, I'll still be standing and you won't, and that's what makes me happy.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that sounds pretty great, honestly. Um, how about the ruler?
So this one's weird because it allows you to do things that normally you can't. My 2 big examples are assault becomes above curve and dive become above curve with this.
Yeah.
Uh it it also, let's see, Divine Thrust is now Advance 5. To Me Command and Sealing Hoplon are now Advance or Retreat 2. Let's see.
And this doesn't affect any of the boosts. It's
No, it does not. It's
okay, so
just during strike
during
effects.
strike specifically. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. And mix up, for example, the movement on mix up is happening before the strike actually occurs, so you wouldn't get a bonus there.
correct.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So as a boost, it expands what things in your toolkits can do. I still think defensively it's better tech to have 6 armor for 2 gauge.
Right.
But but if you find yourself in that position where someone is threatening, you're here at this fun range of 5 that you never want to be in,
Right.
but what they threaten you with here is speed 3. You can boost this, and now their speed 3 isn't as safe because you can just dive in,
Or just assault underneath or something.
or
Sure.
assault underneath if it's
Right.
uh yeah. So it's, as we've said with pretty much everything else in our toolkit, there's going to be a situation for it. It's going to be great, and you're just going to have to learn kind of what that situation is.
Okay. Sure. And otherwise, you have a really consistent, obvious button you can press, just not die and rest in peace.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense to me. Um, Having talked about all of the cards in the kit now, I notice that like the word that keeps going through my head is consistent. That just like these things are often, with the exception of Succession, are often played at a similar range and work decently well, even if they're not going to be all stars. Does Orie have like very good wild swings? It seems like with such a consistent kit, you can just kind of rely on your stuff probably hitting. Um, if you wild swing,
Your 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 wild swing range is 2. And that's where the most of your stuff is consistently online. Otherwise, yeah, she's fairly consistent with wild swings.
okay,
If you know where your succession and your luminous embraces are, if
right.
they're all out of the deck, your wild swings kind of get even better.
Right. And
Because
even
now,
Luminous Embrace you could invalidate. Like it's
yeah,
specifically Succession and I guess like Grasp that
yeah,
that isn't working at range 2. Um and the thing that you were saying earlier about like if you take several game actions in a row with advantage and you're kind of pressuring your opponent's resources, if you're wild swinging while you're doing it, you're up on cards. You're actually able to stay ahead of them, which could be
uh,
valuable.
I have a story from a tournament where I was playing against someone. I was playing Orie, and I was forced to wild swing. Just either I didn't have cards in hand, or this was into a season 7 character, and I had to wild swing.
Sure.
And I got a slow advantage and a stun immune, so I got the advantage. And then I took another attack, and I advantage. And I think my chain was 4 advantage strikes into me finally taking my last turn to be prepare or change cards or something like that. And it was devastating because they've now they've lost all momentum they had. They've lost however many cards from their hand or their deck, and I've sort of just gotten small little things out of it.
Right.
And this does also come into a point that I completely forgot about her unique action on the front side. You can wild swing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can just wild swing that.
Yeah, action, wild swing with or strike with +2 armor and a consistent kit of wild swings. It sounds like you can just do that at range 2 and probably feel fine.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, sure. That honestly that makes sense to me as a game plan, as a range that we're going for because our stuff is so like functional and not an all-star or anything. But it's going to work okay. And then we have this tech for when we need it. Um, okay. So it sounds like that's kind of the shape of the game plan. That's certainly all of the cards we've got. Is there anything else about the specials or ultras that you want to mention, or should we move on to the normals?
Um, I think the only thing is that a warning to people as you're learning to play the character is I'm going to say you're going to have in Magic. I call it control player paralysis. You're going to
Okay.
have a long period of time where you're looking at your hand and going, "Yeah, but if they have this, this will be so good against that." You're going to have that for a bunch of games. It's
Yeah.
just going to be it's a byproduct of her kit. None of it is so good that you always want to be using it. All of it is so situationally good that you want to try and find that shining ray of light for it. And it's going to cause you some problems for your first few games. And it's nothing to get frustrated with. If you're feeling yourself in a rut with that, just wild swing.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's really good advice, especially because like there are some characters in Exceed who have situational cards like that and a lot of ability to change the board state
To
proactively
create that
to set up
situation.
exactly to set up those situations. Orie, like I know she's in like now strike the season. She can probably make something happen if she is looking for specific situations, but like you don't have cancels, you don't have the ability to area shift your opponent into a new range and mess with them. Like you are going to have to use your cards when they're like just good instead of perfect, it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I buy that. And just rely on the value you're getting from your ability for most of the game to carry you through.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and pressure, it sounds like is the other thing. Um, yeah, all right, yeah, that sounds like a game plan to me. In terms of the normals and their boosts, we've talked a little bit about a couple of like pieces of tech that you can use with the ruler and assault and dive, for example. Um, other than that, does Orie think of her normals in any particularly Orie way, or is it really just kind of normal stuff?
There's one call out that I want to make in particular, which is your boost on sweep, which is just defense. A lot of characters are going to lose out on the benefit of it because it's +3 armor, now strike. If you don't have a slow kit, or after lose all armor. If you don't have a slow kit, it's just kind of making things safer. But with Orie's kit being so slow, this generally reads, let's call it 60% of the time, just have an extra 3 armor.
Sure.
You
Okay.
know,
And
it's an important little thing.
it doesn't work with your character ability. You can't stack it to 5 armor, but
No,
you'll probably just be able to not get hit by or I'm sorry, you'll probably be able to have that armor and trade well into most things.
yep.
Okay.
Otherwise, just looking at it, I mean, it's hard to go wrong with respect. Respect is just such a solid boost. 3 movement, and if they take the turn off, you get 2 cards out of it. Hell yeah, that's great.
Yep.
It's probably going to put you in a range you want to be at. Um, and your comment on Sacred Arrow, the EX. Hey, Superior says now you still have 2 defensive options in the deck, but Superior plus Sacred Arrow makes it so you're not pitching both Sacred Arrows into that EX Sacred Arrow.
You can still hold that threat. Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. And superior is just often a very strong boost anyway. Like this
Oh
is this
yeah.
is a pretty simple thing.
Yeah.
Um because of all of the stuff that you were saying about divine thrust like putting you in a position that is a little bit scary for you, is the same true of cross most of the time? Like you'll use it if you need it, but you don't really want to be far away from your opponent.
That is absolutely correct. Cross
Okay.
is, uh it's the grappler problem. I played a
Yeah.
lot of Zangief. I crossed out more times than I care to admit, and then just went, well, my game plan has died here.
Right. Yeah. No,
You know?
I've lost the game by 4 squares of movement or something now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So just watch out for that. But obviously, like if you are dodging an ultra or a sweep or something, you'll probably do it and then use aerial leap or something else to get back in. But
Yeah.
you do need a plan to get back in.
Yes.
Okay. Um. Any other? So I feel like we have talked a little bit about this mix up in particular that is benefited. Do you have any other particular thoughts about the rest of the normals or their boosts? Do you
Um,
all, for example, do you always find yourself veiling off versus focusing or something like that, or are you pretty much using these cards like a normal character would?
you pretty much use them as a normal character would. My only two major notes beyond what I've said so far is once sweep is engaged, it is a whole new ball game because that's 6 power.
Right.
It unlocks exceeding as an option, which changes how you handle focus as well because veil off is just you're now exceeded and you have an extra card engaged to do other things. So
Right. If you're not planning to exceed, that is not a great use of your focus. Focus is a great
no,
card.
yes.
Okay.
And then the additional thing is that front side action is a great bluffing tool
Ah, okay.
because because almost every single normal has a corresponding card in your special kit, special and ultra kit, that doing the action makes them have to think about what you're doing now. You know.
Okay. Yeah. Give me a couple examples of this. This sounds cool.
Okay, so uh, you know, let's do divine thrust and cross. They're
Sure.
both 1 to 2s. They're both 3 6s, and they both move you in different directions. So if you're at that range too, so let's just do this, and you say action strike, and you set your card. Now your opponent has to think, where is my opponent going to end? Where is the Orie player going to end up after this?
Right.
Because if they
Okay.
cross, they end up here. If they stake or divine thrust, they end up here.
Right.
And now, which one do I go for? Because
Right.
if they're
Are
if they're
are
here,
they
it's easier
are
to hit.
I might
But
sweep them, but out
yes,
here, right? I get you. I get you. And that's like obviously they don't know what I'm playing anyway, and there's lots of things that would work at range two. But even like there's like a mix up inside the mix up of like
yes,
a tailor made option that makes it a little bit more ambiguous. Okay, that makes sense.
yep.
Um, the other thing I wanted to mention when you said that once sweep is in your gauge, it's a it's a whole different ball game because now your exceed mode is unlocked. It also like I luminous embrace. It might not be something that you're hitting every game because it sounds like it's kind of hard to set up. But fifth executor puts it in gauge. If you have sweep engage, it's probably because you hit with sweep, and that's like a good thing for you to do.
Oh
So it's
yes,
it's
yes,
not like you're detouring from your regular game plan in order to get sweep in your gauge. You're going to get sweep in your gauge by playing exceed and hope you landed sweep because that's a good thing to do, and then maybe you'll exceed later.
yes.
So it's not
Yeah,
a
no, you're not
proactive
using
setup.
gauge. Yeah, you're not using sweep in any way that you wouldn't normally use it. But
Right.
you know, it's a thing to be cognizant of once you have it there. Hey, your decision making path work changes slightly.
Right. Right. Okay. Sure. That makes sense to me. All right. And that's the normals. We're going to use them pretty much normally, with the exception of some trickery that we can do with our exceed mode and a few mix ups with our character ability. My last big question before we wrap it up by talking about counterplay is economy. So I have a lot of cards that kind of just work. I've got a lot of boosts that are very, very incremental in value. They're not big splashy all-star boosts most of the time. I got a lot of, it sounds like, very efficient movement options, especially on my attacks that I can use to save some force. Um how is my economy in general? Like am I frequently starved for cards, or do I usually have the budget that I'm going to need to close the game out?
I won't say you're starved, and I won't say you're burdened with excess wealth.
Okay.
Uh, you're in a very honest amount of economy. Um, you know, as the game is going, I've never found myself in a position where I look at the state of the game and go, "Oh, I'm just going to lose this because I have nothing in my gauge and I have nothing I can do. I'm all out of options because everything that's left costs me something I can't pay."
Right.
But I'm never going to look at my game state and go, "Oh, I can just chuck 6 gauge into doing whatever I want here because it's meaningless and I have 11 cards in my gauge."
Right.
You know,
Right. Sure.
you you're playing an honest economy. You don't have many 2-for-1s. You don't get 2 cards out of a lot. You only have, honestly, I think it's just Luminous Embrace that adds to your gauge.
Right.
You know, nothing else you have really gives you a an increased rate. but as was pointed out before, several turns of advantage,
And drain the
you're
opponent's resources too. Sure.
yep, yep,
So
you're
and because your wild swings are so good, that can help preserve hand resources. You're not really, it seems like, setting up for big, expensive gauge payouts. You're more playable. Ultra's only 2 gauge, and if you are trying to use your Exceed mode, it probably will only be like for 1 or 2 strikes anyway.
yep,
So the extra gauge isn't often just for changing cards or for moving around the board.
yes.
Okay.
And yeah, that's the big thing is, you'll her entire boost line is zero cost.
Right. Yeah. She doesn't have an expensive kit at all.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Sure. That makes sense to me. So she will probably have enough to afford what she needs to do and what she wants to do, as long as you are conscious of your kit's costs and your payout options. And you don't overspend, but you're not so strapped for cash you'll never be able to do anything in the whole game. You're not
Yep.
Tager, for example.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You're definitely not Taker.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. And then I guess my final question is, we've talked about the Orie things. We've talked about what she's going to be trying to do in the game. What is my opponent doing to stop her?
Well, the easy answer for some characters is just stay out of her preferred range.
Sure.
Her value goes down the further you are from 2. Not everyone has that kit. So the other side of it is she wants to win small or lose small. So make her not do that. You get those big blowout hits in where you can. You know, try and find the openings where hitting her for 5 is going to be a meaningful hit. Hitting her for 4 is going to be a meaningful hit. You want to find, just like she's trying to find the way to kill you with 1,000 cuts, you want to find the way to kill her with 5 cuts.
Okay, sure. Oh, sure, because the more time she gets to interact with you, the more effective armor she has.
Correct. You
Okay,
want to be the aggressor when and where you can be, and you want those aggressive actions to be meaningful and large.
right. Okay,
You know.
because if you hit her for not very much, but you get a lot of value out of cards or something like that, that's great. But now she has more turns on her side to spend using her character ability, and that's going to give her more effective life in the long run.
Yes.
Okay, sure, that makes sense. Um, it also, like, she's very good and very consistent at range 1 or range 2. And you mentioned, like, if you don't have the kind of kit to support playing further out, that could be a detriment to you. I feel like if you are like a range 1 or range 2 monster, like a Zangief, for example, Zangief doesn't care
No.
about like yeah, Orie is good at range 1 and range 2, but there are characters who are like overwhelming at ranges 1 and range 2. If you're that kind of character, you don't like just she has to do something to stop you. You don't have to do something to stop her.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Zangief is a great example. If Zangief is at 1 from Orie, Orie is losing no matter what interaction is about to happen here.
Right.
Because
Right.
Zangief can critical for +2 on the front side, +3 on the backside power.
Plus 3 plus 1 speed. Yeah, Exceed side Zangief is a real scary guy.
He has instantly hit a point where his exchange is always going to be better than you.
Right.
And,
Right.
other
And like
characters similar have, they have ranges where they can just do more than Orie can. And it,
yeah. Like Zangief is an extreme example, but
yes.
there are definitely like nothing that I have seen in this kit so far, like having again had I think like 103 lessons about Exceed characters at this point, has made me be like I'm terrified of letting Orie get range 2. And there are definitely
Yeah.
characters that I've talked to people about in the past where it's like if you get them in their range, you're gonna lose the game because of that. So Orie is
Yes.
not like that. Like you can probably play your game better than she can play hers. It's just that her game is very, very consistent.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Um, all right. Well, Rin, I think I've got a pretty good sense of the Orie game plan. Um, I think I'm ready to call this one done and put it in the books. Unless you have anything else you wanted to mention.
Um, Not anything major, honestly. Just I wish to see more people playing her because she's interesting. She's kind of a place where I don't think a lot of people have explored her. She has a
Yeah.
fun toolkit. Um, It's just a toolkit that requires you to think more than some of the Unga Bunga characters, think more than some of the zoners, and it's sort of off-putting for a few people to look at the kit and go, well, there's not big numbers
Right.
and there's
Right.
not
Yeah.
big things, but
Where's the fun in this, right? And I
yeah,
also feel like so she is thinking a little bit more than the Unga Bunga characters, but the other characters that you've mentioned as playing over the course of this lesson, one of them you mentioned was Rachel. Um, and like I don't know if this is a 100% fair comparison because I don't think that excess exceed lesson length is necessarily perfectly a one-to-one comparison with character complexity. But the Rachel episode was 3.5 hours long, 3 hours and 15 minutes long. Like she's not Orie is not so complicated that you can't wrap your brain around playing her. So like she does occupy kind of like a nice middle ground where maybe you can play her in a more casual setting without like getting out the charts in the calculator.
I've never had to explain anything about Orie to her, to an opponent, to the same degree as I've had to explain things about Rachel or Arakune,
Arakune, yeah,
Hilde, Yuzuria.
yeah,
Most of my other toolkit of characters that I play fairly consistently,
yeah.
when I play them against a new player, there's a point where I have to go, we're going to have a 5-minute digression here where I explain to you all the bizarre things that are about to happen. And I hope you don't take it at just face value and you ask questions. When I'm
Right,
playing Orie, it's, hey, there's this weird thing that might happen, but like otherwise we're gonna play a kind of fair and honest game, and I don't think anyone's gonna get hit for 13, but if it does, it's gonna be an exciting story to tell. Otherwise, we're just gonna trade twos and threes,
right.
probably.
I get you. Okay, cool. Yeah. So you can if you don't want to play a completely hold forward and attack character, but you don't want to uh be so paralyzed by the complexity of Exceed that you can't play at all, Orie might be a character for you then. Um,
Yep,
well, Rin, thank you so much for the lesson, for your time, for your expertise. I really had a good time talking to you. Thank you so much.
of course. It was great to be here, and I'm happy to shed some light on a character that, like I said, I think deserves a little more spotlight.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks viewing, I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something. Go play Orie. Rin did a great job. I think I would like more people to give her a second look. But yeah, with all that said, I think we are going to wrap this one up. Thank you all for watching. I will see you for the next one. Goodbye, everybody.